Some of you might recognize this guy, Ken Robinson. He gave one of the most watched TED Talks of all time about how creativity kills education. So we don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it, or we're educated out of it. And this is a problem because creativity is not just about finger painting and art and all that stuff, which is fantastic. It's also about being wrong, being able to be wrong, and being able to come up with original thoughts and innovate as a society, as a world. This guy gave another really good TED Talk, which you might not have seen, about some of the problems with TED Talks. And he said, have you ever wondered why so little of the bright future promised in TED Talks actually happened? And he contrasted the simple inspiration of a TED Talk with the messy reality of actually trying to change something. And we've seen some of that tonight. The latter bit, not the first bit. And this is the story of a couple of people who saw Ken Robinson's talk and were like, could we make this actually happen? So the four people in the kind of middle layer there are designers, of which I'm one of them, and the two others are educators. And we said, how could we design the education of the 21st century? How can we prepare kids for the future? So what we did first was we went out and spoke to loads of people, kids, parents, teachers, thinkers in education, and got lots of different viewpoints on where the issues are coming up. We even did some observations in some schools. We went to parents' conferences all over the place. We found that again and again we heard about this downward spiral of confidence. So first you're disengaged in school, maybe in a particular subject even, then you're more generally disengaged. I'm not good at physics, I'm not good at maths. And eventually it starts affecting your self-confidence and your self-efficacy in all kinds of areas if you don't catch it early. Secondly, the world is changing, so we can Google everything now. It's a different ballgame to what it used to be. New jobs are being invented every year, so 65% of children in school today will work in jobs that haven't been invented yet. So how can we prepare them for a future that we can't even see? And finally, the world is facing lots of complex and messy challenges that we can't solve, so how do we prepare the next generation to do that? So and also, finally, schools are under a lot of pressure. So we did a lot of this research in the UK, but this is also true in lots of places that targets and numeracy, literacy is taking priority and creativity is getting squeezed out, as are some children who may not benefit from the mainstream type of education practices. So we came up with a hypothesis on 21st century education. We said, is it something that could be collaborative, creative, empathic, child-centered, and open-ended? And being designers, we quickly moved from a hypothesis to a prototype. We used a simple online animation tool to design our ideal school of the future. So with personalized reports, following from kids' passions, immersive learning in workshops. And then we took this and turned it into real life. So this is a housing trust in South London where we went. And we gave the kids an exercise. So this is something we do to train designers. And it's something where you can actually step into the shoes of someone else. So by restricting your motion and your sight, you can simulate what it's like to be an older person. And then you can see how difficult it is to do everyday things like making sandwiches and how the packaging design affects that. And the kids were really able to engage with this as well as any, adult designer. And so we plowed on and did a full week camp in 2014 in London. So the theme of the camp was London 2050, and kids designed the city of the future. So experts came in 3 areas and briefed them on the clothing challenges, the challenges in habitat, and the challenges in transport. And invited the kids to design solutions to these challenges, which they did. So solutions like an amphibious car that can go through the River Thames during rush hour to avoid the traffic, like a floating house that's powered by poo, so you don't need any energy, and like a hat that can turn really quickly into a cape, because in the future, as they learned from the experts, there will be really quick weather changes, and you might suddenly have a really sunny day and you're chilling out in your hat, and then you need to cover up from a quick rain shower. So at the end of the week, the experts came back in and the parents came in and the kids showed off their work, and this was all fantastic and everything went really well, and we were really happy and really exhausted because we'd kind of done it all ourselves and run on adrenaline, and we were burnt out, but we plowed on. So we came up with our second hypothesis and we said, that was great. The kids really benefited, we felt. We got really good feedback from the parents, but we got kids from all over London. And when it was over, they just went back to their schools, and we had some fear that maybe that some of the learning dissipated. And we wonder what would happen with all the great ideas that they come up with. Could we actually take real world challenges and base something in a community where year on year it could evolve? So at the time I was living in a place called Peckham in South London. You might know it from Only Fools and Horses or other places, but it's a really interesting place, lots of community activities, but also lots of social challenges. So we wanted to embed ourselves there. We set up a little pop-up shop on the high street, and we got ourselves a group of young people, slightly older this time, and we set up basically like a little PR agency locally, just for really local businesses on the street and different community groups to come down, brief the kids on challenges they had and see what they could come up with. So I'm just going to talk about one of those, which is Trade. So Trade's a really interesting organization in the UK. They basically fix clothes, sell the clothes, and then they use the money to help garment workers around the world. They have a really interesting window display aesthetic. It's kind of like a high fashion look. You can see some of the mannequins in the window, and that's one of their trademark things. And they basically came to Peckham. They did quite well among people like me who'd moved to Peckham, young professionals, whatever, the people who were kind of ruining the area. But they didn't do too well with the local young people who actually lived there. They didn't go into the shop, and they wanted to know why. So they came to our young people, asked them, and the young people were like, well, A, vintage clothes, people are a bit iffy. I don't know if I want to be wearing old clothes. But B, the main thing is that those mannequins look really stupid, and none of us want to look like that. So why did you put that in the window? Because that's not what we're aspiring to. So Trade said, wow, we'd never actually heard this from any of our agencies that we get for our marketing and advertising. And so they invited the kids to take over the shop, which they did. They had an event called How Would You Rock It, which was celebrating the individuality that can come from vintage clothes and remade clothes. And they actually got to dress the mannequins in styles that they found appealing. And screen printed some t-shirts, and it was a great success, and they raised loads of money. And that was all great. And then nothing happened after that for a while, because we had reached a point at that stage where we were all we'd used up our reserves. It took a lot of energy out of us again, and just life took over. Like, from the original group of people that were working on this, Ed went to Hong Kong to design funeral homes, and Holly went to be a lecturer in California, and Moa had a baby, and I kind of sold out and worked with some corporate places and did some public service stuff. So other things were happening, and it kind of seemed like after all of that, the adventure kind of come to an end. And maybe it was like, it was nice to see if we could imagine this 21st century education, but ultimately too much for us to take on. And then this happened. So this is across the road here, right beside us at the in the library of Tallaght, and this is our new team that's been established. You might recognize Jerry there from one of the previous TED Talks, and we started getting involved with Fistruct. And I also need to give a shout out to the lady second from the left here, who's a senior lecturer in IT Tallaght, also happens to be my mum, and she's over there, so I'd like a quick round of applause for her. Because so aside from being an inspiration to me from a young age and being a woman in engineering and running initiatives to get more women into engineering, she actually kind of masterminded this by seeing an opportunity for IT Tallaht's outreach to grow, and also to use some of the design thinking methods that we'd come up with. So she showed our video to Jerry. Jerry got involved, and we started thinking up this Fistruct thing, which he talked a lot about earlier, and which was really cool. And then we started, some of the original team were there. We gathered some more people. Barbara's here from the library, who also helped us out. So a quick round of applause for Barbara also, and the library. And Laura from Foróige. And what this represented was a new hypothesis for us. So the partnerships we developed in Peckham were good, but we needed to be in deeper. So we needed relationships with organizations like IT Tallaght, like the library here, like Foróige, who've been working in the area for a long time. Also, bringing STEM in was a really good move for us, because from design can take you so far, but once you get in engineering and other capabilities, that's where you can really take the ideas quite far. So, some other things. So this is Neil from Transdev Lewis, who came on board as kind of a corporate partner, started out as one of our experts briefing the kids on transport, and now has actually agreed to fund some of our camps. Also the Science Foundation of Ireland, who Jerry spoke about earlier, who are critical. And yeah, the kids are still solving these challenges, and this is now happening within 100 meters of us tonight. And I think they can do this stuff. Like, and every time I watch them do it, I'm like, why aren't we allowing them to do this week in, week out in school? If kids can solve problems like overcrowding, like pollution, they should be able to do that. And they're still coming up with great ideas. So this is Harry from Tallaght as well, invented this house which floats away in case of floods. And, and Laura behind him also designed a collapsible wheelchair, which is for her granddad to have better mobility when he's moving around. So really cool stuff. So what's the point? Why am I telling you all this? Well, looking back on it, I can see how our hypothesis says evolved. And hopefully I've told you a story tonight that makes some kind of sense. But it didn't feel like that at the time. It didn't feel like it was making sense. And it felt like a lot of kind of false starts and mistakes that we were making. These are the first two slides we show the kids when they come in at the start of the week. So we say, what are some of the problems that are facing the world? And they can always tell us. And then we say, and who should solve these? And it takes them a little while, but ultimately they realize it's them, it's us, it's kind of everybody who's going to have to solve them. And the only way we can do that is by diving in something we call fearless learning. So failing again and keep going. So the challenge I've got for you guys tonight is, we saw that TED Talk, Ken Robinson, we went out and we thought, what can we do about it? And we kind of tried a lot of different things. Some things went well, some things didn't go well. And I would like to set the challenge for everybody here tonight to do the same. And if you ever feel like you're flailing a bit while you're doing that, just remember that there's no such thing as flying. There's only Toy Story and falling with style. So thank you, everyone.